active member? The kind that would be missed? Or are you just content that your name is on the list? Do you attend the meetings and mingle with the flock? Or do you just stay at home and criticize and knock? Do you take an active part to help the club along? Or are you satisfied to just belong? Do you push the cause along and make things really thick? Or leave the work to just a few and talk about the clique? Think this over, brother. You know right from wrong. Are you an active member? Or do you just belong?
Welcome to Patched, where we look at the personal impact of life in outlaw motorcycle clubs. This week, my co-host, Justin Mooch Delaretto, and I sit down with Gene, former member of the Pagans Motorcycle Club. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Patch Podcast. We have a couple of questions from last couple episodes we'd like to go over today just to kind of, engage with our viewers. One of our questions, is your brother still an active member in the club?
Yeah, my brother actually retired prior to me leaving the club, so he's retired in good standings.
Okay, great. Another question is from our viewers, something that they have heard, like maybe we talked about on one of the episodes, is we mentioned the Kool-Aid mentality. Gene or Mooch, do you guys want to talk about that? Kind of like new members or people getting into the club and, how they act based on the crowd that they're with.
Yeah, let's throw it to Gene, get him warmed up here.
I think when a lot of guys, go through the prospecting phase and, they get in, it's kind of like, when you just get married. It's only when that, you get through that honeymoon phase that stuff really starts kicking in. And I never forget, I had an old bandito tell me years ago, there's a lot of patch holders, but very few brothers. And I think once that reality starts hitting these young, and I mean young, like new into the lifestyle, new to the club, that it's almost a disillusion a lot of times. That's when you really start having guys, fall out and just have a hard time dealing, with that lifestyle personally. But everybody drinks the Kool-Aid to a degree, when they first start. All of us have,
Absolutely. I would say that that's 100% true. Everyone drinks it to some extent. You're so fascinated by the fact that you're now a member and that you're in this lifestyle and, riding on the highway with your brothers in formation. It's like a drug on its own, and that was the reason why we all joined. That was the reason why we stayed for as long as we did. I mean, just that feeling that you're feeling. So I think for the viewers that are asking the question, yeah, all of us are subject to that Kool-Aid mentality. It's just about how, like Gene said, you progress as time goes on and you kind of realize who your clique is or who your friends are or who your true brothers are within that club. It might not be in your charter necessarily. It might be in another charter that you click with people. You meet them on the road and you look forward to seeing them at runs. Mm-hmm. And those are people you can talk to when you're at runs about your actual, that can be your support group basically for how's your family life or what's going on with your charter, how's everything going with yourself, how's work. Those are outlets. Sometimes you can't always talk to the people that are in your charter. You're looking for someone that you connect with, and that's just natural. Anything to add to that, Mooch?
No, I think you're right. I think, a lot of it is, you're brand new, you're loyal to the guy that brought you in, you're loyal to the current sitting president, you're pretty unaware of club politics, right? Your blinders are still on, you're locked into the enjoyable parts. Why did you join? We're riding, we're partying, we're having fun. It really takes a while to get into the club to really start seeing the inner workings and reasons to speak up or reasons to have opinions or to start questioning things.
Yeah, and I'd say that, like you said, Mooch, the member that you spend the most time with, let's say it's your sponsors or it's some member that you attach yourself to, whether he's got a position in the club or he has a certain job in the club, well, you start to learn those positions and jobs. And if you're someone who wants to get into that type of stuff in the club, like all three of us did, of course, we figured out what does the club need to run, where can I be of best use, and how do I make it work, right? Well, you follow your leadership's role, right? So I think that's a well put that if you fall in line with those people, that's who you become close with in your charter, and that's how things work out. That's how they shake. Let's move on to a couple of questions for Gene.
All right, Gene, so we can give a little bit of background to our viewership.
Luke, sorry, one second. Does somebody have a pen they're clicking or something?
I did. I got headphones on. I can't hear shit.
All the time.
Dude.
I'm always fidgeting with the pen or clicking the pen.
They're always telling me here, don't touch the wire between my legs. It's so fucking hard. I'm just like sitting here playing with it.
Okay.
I'm not a professional. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, maybe that'll keep me from touching it. Whenever you're ready, brother.
All right, so Gene, so we can give our viewers a little bit of a background of your history. I know that you started out, you were in the Vagos Motorcycle Club first, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how long were you in the Vagos for?
10 years.
And I know, for the viewers that don't know, I was also in the Vagos. I started out there. I was in from 05 to about 07. When did you join? Because I know we had a slight overlap.
Lord, you're going to make me tell you a lie. It was probably just a couple years after you got out, honestly, and 10 years from there. It's a great organization. I got to tell you, when I left, it was just because I had some personal family and medical stuff, and had wasn't able to fulfill my obligations. That was a hard decision. But I have absolutely nothing but respect, for that organization. Still talk to a lot of those guys, today. They're just a good group.
Yeah, I think a lot's changed since the short amount of time I was in it. I think there's been a lot of changes as well, and they seem to continue to grow. And seems like they got a lot going on.
Gene, what charter or where were you at? Where were you located when you were in the Vagos?
I was a nomad with them for most of my time, and I was in Oklahoma. Was my last because I lived here from 15 to 17. This was my last charter that I was in before I got out.
So you got out, family stuff for a while, and then you ended up joining the Pagans. Is that correct?
I had a little stint in between, and it's funny. It's actually a funny story. We had a guy that was up in West Virginia, and I reached out to the Pagans because I was big in that area, and I was expecting one of the reps to call me, what have you. Well, I get a call from this guy, and he said, "Hey, Gene, this is Conan, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, no shit, man, because, anybody that's done this for any length of time knows who Conan is. And honestly, I was shocked, that he would take the time to call me. And he and I just developed a very, very, special, close relationship through the years. And I told him one day, I said, I can't speak for anybody else, but I want to be a pagan. And that kind of started the process to a lot of us coming over. And you see the news about the blue wave and going across to Washington, blah, blah, blah. I can't say that I did all that, but Conan and I were the ones that, took that expansion out from east to west.
Yeah, and great, I think, the one really cool thing is you talk about that blue wave, and I think Conan was really good at that personal part of it, right? Like making those phone calls, like knowing, hey, there's a group here that might be interested, and then showing up or having that direct communication, because I saw that firsthand too. And then with my position in the Mongols, I did a lot of sit-downs with the major clubs. I did a lot of the politicking with the other clubs, and that's actually how I met Gene. Is I was looking over the Midwest of the Mongols, and Gene was over the Midwest region of the Pagans, and so that's when we first started spending time together. And spent some good time on the road together, too.
Amen. It's funny, we talk about brothers within, the club, but, we don't really talk a lot about brothers that you meet, from the other clubs. And I've told many people through the years, Mooch is as close, as any brother I've ever had in any organization, the Marine Corps on. So, that just goes to show, you click with people and you support each other, and there's nothing that says it can't be from other clubs as well.
Yeah, it's like,
I feel like we work pretty good together. Sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. It's that common goal. It's that common bond, right? You guys are both trying to expand your groups. You're trying to work on, protecting guys, or making sure everyone's working and jiving together, and that's what brings you close. You guys are actually you're putting in the work, right? The work to make the club keep running, right? That's something that I feel like I had a lot of good relationships with guys in SoCal area from different clubs, and they had my back when I'd be going on trips. Gene, did you know Tombstone from the Vagos?
I did.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and so like
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on the road with him. I spent a lot of time on the road with Rags from Mooch's Club, and Spike from the Hessians, and a few other guys that like we were close. I mean, we were kind of like molding these younger clubs coming around the COC. Like they'd ask us questions, but we were the guys who were kind of saying like, like this is what you guys should do or this is what you guys shouldn't do. I mean, we were all in the same boat. We were all on the same track to try to make the club life better. So yeah, I think that's really that's where some good bonds are made.
The craziest thing with the whole club life, or clubs to me, being a combat Marine is, there's just so many military guys in every organization. And I've had this conversation at least 100 plus times with guys in different clubs that have an issue with you being here, there, what have you. And I said, we fought for the same fucking thing. To basically have the right to get out here and do what the fuck we're doing. Well, why in the fuck are we fighting over this shit? To me, that's never made any sense whatsoever. Especially as a Marine, with another Marine from another organization, just never made sense to me. Now, I think a lot of that shit can be handled just by sitting down like Luke and I did, and just figure the shit out. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have a question for you, Gene.
Yes, sir.
So, what got you into motorcycles?
Like a lot of us, we grew up with family, riding motorcycles and what have you. My great uncles were all hardcore, bikers in South Carolina, and I remember as a kid, the early mid '70s, going and visiting and seeing the bikes come up and down. And it just always, thought it was the coolest shit ever. And as I started growing up and got out of the Marine Corps, and actually my first bike I got was I was 14. I never forget, it was a Suzuki GS 850. It was a fast son of a bitch too, but probably shouldn't have had it. But when I got out of the Marine Corps, started working, bought a 85 FS RT, and Mooch will kill me for doing this to it, but I stripped that son of a bitch straight down, took all the fairing off and everything. And that was my first Harley. And I just started riding around with some guys in South Carolina, and really just found, and it wasn't a club, it's just a bunch of us, that were tight, had shared common interests. And as I started riding these guys, I thought, man, I really like having like-minded men around me. And I think as men, we all need that, because we're all in that pack mentality as men. And I think we need that common pack, to associate with and be with and bounce stuff off of, and just, I think that's, as men, we got to have that.
Yeah.
And that's what I was looking for.
And regardless if you're into a basketball league, at a gym, or if you're, you're nowadays people are playing pickleball by the thousands. It's like guys just want to have a group of guys that they know is not associated to work. It's not associated with their family troubles, but they can get together with them and have a common bond, right? So that's what was good about motorcycles and guys in the clubs, because we all have those same wants and passions.
Right. I know, hope we get into it, but the biggest thing that I think that a lot of us need is somebody to call and say, Jason, I'm in a fucked up headspace right now, man. Yeah. I need somebody with me, and I think that's something that's missing in the club world right now. I think so many guys just have an alpha male mentality. I don't need help. I'm not going to ask for help. And I think it's on us as brothers for each other to say, hey, you know what, Mooch, I know that you're struggling, bro. I'm here. Let's go do whatever. Really recognize that and be there for them.
Yeah, it's not a common thing for people in the club to reach out to show empathy.
No.
That's a shame, because like you said, Gene, there's so many brothers that we see like as they're going down the rabbit hole, and as we're basically kicking them out of the club, we didn't look to say, why didn't we get involved in this 6 months ago, a year ago. Sometimes there are some interactions where you do see someone, whether it's drugs or not, and that just might be because of our club rules, right? That why we are getting on them about using drugs, but we're really not checking on them. We're really not saying, why do you feel like you need to do drugs, 24/7 for the next until your life falls apart. So, there's no, of course we don't want to be babysat. We're grown men and all that stuff, but like you said, Gene, no one's reaching out and saying on a Monday night that's not a church night, or we're not going on a run, or maybe we got back from a run, hey, are you okay? Do you need to get it? Can we go get a beer, or like, do you want to just go ride somewhere and go get dinner and just tell me like what's going on with you, because it seems like something's going on. Nobody wants to approach those topics because we're so.
I think a lot of that falls on leadership too, because I've seen over the years, and it's actually something that Gene and I worked on together too when we were doing the lift, train, ride stuff. But when there's rules in place, like within the Mongols, if someone's having a drug issue, before we kick them out, we send them to rehab. We reach out, we see if there's an issue. The Mongols actually have a chapter that's full of clean and sober members, and they have their own clean and sober living facility. Within the stuff that Gene and I have done, guys are supposed to be working out 3-4 days a week, and we notice, hey, if you're not working out, are you okay? Is everything going good? Because all of a sudden they're missing these important pieces, right? Or Gene and I both do jujitsu, and we get guys in the training, so it's like having these things in place for the brothers to do, instead of just waiting till they spin out of control and saying, hey, how can I help? So having this foundation already set up, I think goes a super long way for that too, because then it kind of opens the door to talking about stuff. Like, sure, if I see you at church and then on the bikes and that's it, I'm probably not going to tell you how I'm doing. But if we're in the gym together, or we're on the mats together, or we're at long rides together on the side of the road, that's when you really get to know somebody, and that's when we can find out, hey, are you okay, and how can we help?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% on that one. 100%. I think that's awesome that you guys were doing that with your groups. Huge.
I learned a lot from that, honestly. To have that discipline, and I still do. I still, hit the gym, train. That's just something that I think helps me. And I think a lot of self-awareness, comes into play as well. And that's one thing. Whenever we're doing that, we should really made me realize, shit, man, I have neglected myself, first of all, and if I neglect myself, I can't be, good to anybody else.
I used to bring it up to a vote in the region and say, is everyone cool with adding to the bylaws that everyone works out 3 or 4 days a week? And anytime someone said no, I'd be like, okay, give me one reason. What's one good reason why you can't do something active for yourself? And there was the older guys that had health issues. Well, then go walk some laps at the park. Even the guys that, I'm a shooter, cool, then go show me that you're shooting at the range and you're practicing your draws and you're practicing your targets. But there's so much more to it. A, obviously it's militant, we're ready, but B, the biggest part is just that you're doing something outside of the club stuff, but it's still a shared interest that we all have together. It's a common interest, and it's something that's good for you to do. It's a healthy outlet. And so I don't really see any reason why people wouldn't do that, but we get so busy in club life and so wrapped up, it's really easy to forget or put aside.
There's no negative to it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely no negative. And as well as I do, that if a guy's got his stuff together enough to do those 3 or 4 days of training, then his other stuff is more than likely not falling apart as well. So It's just like the whole example of make your bed every morning, right? Like I tell this to my kids and to young guys that work for me. I'm like, if your car is a mess and if your bedroom is a mess, then your life is probably not put together. I'm like, so if you can just start with those 2 basic things, you're gonna see like how your life just starts to, just a few changes are gonna happen, right? And the more organized and the better you feel about yourself with a confidence, like what you guys are saying with the work, train, lift, it's like. It could transform you, in 6 months to a different person, mentally for sure. Confidence up. All these things are important when we're part of these motorcycle organizations. Is you need to be healthy and on your game. For more than one reason. So
absolutely.
Justin, do you want to go ahead and ask next question?
Yeah. So Gene, when you were active in club life, especially when it was new, how did that affect like your relationships with like work, your previous friend groups, family? Like how did being active in the club affect those?
Well, I know you very well, Jason. You and I get to know each other, but one thing about most of us, we're extreme fucking men. So whenever I go into anything, I go into 1,000%. There is no being half pregnant. So for me, as I was going to Vagos and I was. Any run, anywhere I could be. We were riding cross country, we were doing whatever we needed to do. And it was all of the fucking time. And, it's one of those things, my kids were young, and I wish I could go back and recapture that time with them, but I obviously can't, and that's probably the biggest regret that I have, if I have one, is the time that I took away from my kids, helping grow an organization. It's not fair to them, but it affects everything. I mean, if you're committed to it and you're just, balls to the wall, for lack of a better term, and you're growing it. You isolate everybody else out of your life, So for me, it was club and work. I just worked to, to be able to go do all my club shit. And, it really cost personal relationships, friends, a lot of different things, for the sake of the club and, to have a few, solid brothers out of it.
Okay, Gene, what are some takeaways you got from the motorcycle club? And the second part to that question is, what did it teach you?
Well, I can tell you, the biggest thing, I said one of the biggest things I learned is there's a lot of patch holders, but there's not very many brothers. And, not everybody wears that patch. It's got your best interest at heart, especially if you're starting to grow within the club organization, you get in different leadership positions. I think all of us, can sit here and testify to that. There's a whole lot of jealousy that comes into that. So, one thing I really, really learned is as you start growing, not just in club life, but, life in general, there's a lot of jealousy that comes along with it. And if you can have a handful of true brothers, then you're blessed, to come out of that lifestyle that way because, everybody can call you their brother, but, only when the shit hits the wall. When you're down and out, when you're like, man, I'm about to just, go on a bender and nobody's calling you, that's when you really tell who your brothers are. And if you can have at least 5 of those, then you're blessed coming out of the club life.
And just to add to that, some things that I've noticed over the years, and I look back, always as we get older and we look back at the situations that we were in, right? You kind of realize to yourself that, like, yes, all 3 of us were very active and we were taking on roles and trying to do different positions, but that's who we are, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter what we were going to do. If we were going to be involved in toy train sets, we would have the coolest models that you'd ever see, right? And we'd be into that. Like, I that's the way I like to put it. And then there are just guys who just are not. That's not their mentality, and their mentality is to, I got in, I'm going to wait until I'm asked to do something. I'm going to wait until it's time to go. I'm going to maybe figure out if I can get there. Even though I know it's the same time every year, it's the same thing, right? So there's a group of people who are doers and there's a group of people who are just happy and content that we're doing and they don't have to. And so, like, looking back at all those things, like, we could go on and on about this stuff, but I almost, like, nowadays I realize that it's just there's groups of people that you just got to say, there's only so much that they can do because that's just the way their mind works, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they're not going to jump in and say, I'm going to ride with you to go open up a new charter or do this stuff. They're barely hanging on to what they're trying to get done at home. They have their own issues, right? We're all dealing with the same problems. Parents, kids, people who are sick, money issues. But it's guys like us who are saying, we're going to deal with all these problems, and then on top of that, we're also going to put in the work to do this extra stuff, and we're also motivated by that to put in all this extra time, and that's what keeps us running. That's what makes our motor run hard, right? And so, I can feel it, like the way you were saying, Gene. I can totally feel it, like just remembering those times where it was like I didn't care what I had to do during the week to get it done, so I could get on my bike and ride up north or ride to the Midwest or get on a plane and go, because that's what I look forward to. It was like the rest of the shit was just filling in the blanks until I could get to be gone to work on something, right? Sorry to interrupt you, Mooch. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that the sad thing about that, what I think we've probably all seen too, is the doers, the active people, the ones that have the club's best interest in mind, so they always have a voice, they stand up, they don't last, right? And those that sit in the back, that just go with the flow, and whether they agree with it or not, they don't want to rock the boat. Those are the guys that are 20 and 30-year members. And, it's kind of this weird catch-22 because we look up to these old school members. But in this newer generation, the ones that last are the ones that just go with the flow, that show up when they can and aren't super active because, A, they're not burning out, but B, they're not getting involved in politics. I mean, there's a lot to it. But I think the unfortunate part is, guys like us that put our all into it usually end up burning out.
Yeah, and then think about that, like, for the leadership of the guys who are coming into the club. You know what I mean? It's like, this is who they're listening to, right? These are the people that they're following. It's, guys who have just been hanging out. It's tough.
I can tell you, for me, being, like all of us being driven, the brothers that I would hang out with, honestly, were rarely the leaders in the deal, because a lot of times, you guys know, if you're at a level within an organization, you got people that just hang around you just because you're at that level. And I made it a point that I always just want to hang out with the fucking brothers, and so to that point, I may have, guys that maybe didn't have the desire to, move up or the drive. They're just good fucking brothers, man. If you needed something, it was there that quick, So those are the guys that, that I held dear to me, more so than the guys that were just, trying to drive and push, push the agendas.
Yeah, plus you don't want to talk shop all the time, right? I mean, you don't want to talk about it all the time. It's like we could go down these dark roads of talking about law enforcement and what's going on with the club and what's going on with that other club and just keep going and keep going and keep going. But like the fun to me is being on that bike, and the fun to me is being with guys, like you said, that they necessarily weren't involved in all that stuff, and I looked at them and I was almost envious. Like I went to Alaska one time for a celebration of life, and I was up there, and every single club got along. The entire Alaska state, everyone was there. Every motorcycle club, there was no issues, there were no problems, and I thought to myself, God, I wish I fucking lived in Alaska, because this seems like the way it should be. And they're all enjoying themselves. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna leave and get on a plane and go back to Southern California where it's a fucking war zone.
Right.
And so like, yeah, there is so many aspects of different areas where you could live in the North America or in different countries where they don't have these issues, and they look at us and go, why is it so volatile in your area, or like, why are you fighting with your own brothers, and how do you deal with that? And it's like, I don't know, but this is exactly the reason for this podcast, because all the guys who have had to deal with that, whether it was 2 years or 20 years, there is a lot of mental baggage in your fucking system that you have had no way to get out, and you've had nobody to talk to about it, because it's daunting when you think about it. I mean,
absolutely.
like, how many of you guys went to a funeral every other month? I mean, whether it was someone dying for old age or someone dying from some incident, we had a funeral to go to every other month. I mean, who does that for a decade? I mean, that's a lot of fucking funerals. So
Gene, when you stepped away from club life this last time, how did that affect like your work, family, friends? Were you able to make up for lost time? Did career stuff change? Like, what positive effects did leaving club life have for you?
I focused a lot more on my jiu-jitsu, and when you and I met, focused on the health, and mentally, I was able to separate out from the politics. We just went through the same shit that you and Dave went through, and Jason and I were talking earlier. We need to think of better lies to tell about each other, so once you get through all that shit, you're like, fuck these guys, people that are talking shit, it is what it is. But I can tell you, my old club, and I love, a lot of those guys, I fucking do anything for to this day. But to answer your question, as I stepped away, it was different, to go from being somewhere every fucking weekend, with the higher ups, with the brothers, every fucking weekend, to actually having time to sit back and kind of decompress was a big thing. Now, in all honesty and fairness, I was done with the club life. I had some friends that were with the Beast down in Texas, and they reached out to me. They said, hey, we're going to come around. So I just started coming around, hanging out with them, and I really found in a smaller organization what I had been looking for in these bigger organizations, if that makes any sense, and the true brotherhood. And I'm not trying to pitch organization with or anything, I'm just telling you what I found. So I was able to really balance, with the club that can balance, hey, you know what, if you can't take care of your family, if you own that shit, you'll never be good as a brother. And that's the way that it goes. And for me, that's really just complimented coming out of the other organization, and it's just actually added a lot to my life.
yeah, because we all need something to fill that void, like you said, Gene.
Look,
Like,
well, I do. Look,
yeah.
I'm a guy. I got to have motherfuckers around me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And do I need them? Probably not. But do I want it? Absolutely. I got to have that pack around me, for lack of a better term. And I just had some guys here just a few nights ago, and passing through and open my house up, and we just fellowship and have a good time. There's no we don't do any of the drugs, so it's none of that bullshit. We're just sitting here enjoying fucking brotherhood, man, the way that it should be.
That's awesome.
And I need that, for me.
Yeah,
I need that.
Truly. So like we kind of brushed over this question a lot, but how would you deal with stress when you were in the club? We obviously talked about training and jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, but like, was there like maybe a meditation or a visual or being on that bike a certain time of night or morning that you felt like you were at a calmness? You know what I mean? That how it is when you're on the road and like the perfect weather, during the summertime at night before it gets dark, and you're just like, man, this feels like you're gliding on the freeway. Something like that. How did you deal with all the stuff that we put on our shoulders?
After a stressful meeting or stressful run, whatever, I always like to ride at night. And honestly, it used to drive Conan crazy because I would ride by myself more times than not. He fucking hated that. But I just love riding at night by myself and just getting out and, just hammering it down. The main way that I dealt with it, though, was through my jiu-jitsu. I did, a lot of jiu-jitsu still do to this day. Mm-hmm. So for me to be able to get that, physical aggression out, because at the end of the day as men, that's if you want to relieve aggression, that's really the way to do it, is that physical aggression. And as Mooch would tell you, Mooch is one of my closest friends, and he and I we'll beat the shit out of each other and bust each other up, and at the end of the 6-minute roll we hug each other and hey man, you did good this, Bob, again, so we do two things: we get that aggression out, and we still have that bond of brotherhood. And I've got some really, really close friends that come from the jiu-jitsu world, like really close friends, and they help me deal with a whole lot of shit. The interesting thing with jiu-jitsu, and I know it's the reason that we're here, but when I go and train, and I'm sure Mooch will tell you the same thing, I can't tell you what religion a motherfucker is, what their political affiliations are, what they do for a living, if they got money, don't have money, it doesn't matter. We're all just right there training, choking shit out of each other, and just bonding over that. And it's a shame that as a community of 1%ers that we can't just do that, because we all want the same shit. It's just a shame that we can't all come together and have that same type of mentality that we do in the jiu-jitsu world.
Yeah, I think that's a really great parallel. And if you took the patches out of it, or any club beef, right, it should be similar. That's a bunch of adult males with similar interests or shared interests, and these interests comes with a lot of sacrifices and hard work. We're doing long road trips together, late night events together. There's so many things that really should be, like you said, a fellowship and bringing people together. And I think the only thing getting in the way of that is the politics and beef between clubs, because it really is a very strong parallel to that jiu-jitsu life. And when I left the club, the jiu-jitsu team has kind of replaced my brotherhood. That was one of the reasons I was able to have that pretty smooth transition, is I got to call on those guys just like brothers too, for the very same reason. So I definitely wish that the club life would get on that level as well.
Well, for me, Tom DuBois is, who I'm under, is out my black belt under, and Tom's very open. I'm not saying anything, that he wouldn't say. He's very open about his, his mental health struggles and his life struggles, and that was a guy that I was able to open up to, about things I was dealing with, and where, we could share back and forth. And I would not have found that if not have been for that jiu-jitsu, lifestyle and community.
Yeah, he's a tough guy, MMA guy, fighter, and very active on social media talking about men's mental health and making sure your friends are okay. So he's a good advocate for the mental health community for sure.
Absolutely.
It's important to have those type of people out there giving examples for guys who are, confused about if they should even be talking about this. Right? The more of us that are out there discussing these things, I think the more people that are going to come forth, and there's going to be a lot of help, in the next few years. I feel like that's why I think this is so important. This is why Mooch and I have talked about this, Gene. Why we talked on the phone. Like, it just takes a few of us that have gone down those paths that people can't believe that we went down, and we are turning back around and saying, hey, we get it. We get what's going on in life. Life sucks. It's hard. But there are people out there. There are groups. We're not saying motorcycles are the answer. We're saying that find a hobby, find something. Go jiu-jitsu at a gym. Introduce yourself to some new people. Find a new group of friends if the group of friends you're with are not being positive in any direction for you. There's nothing wrong with just trying something new. You might you might find a whole awakening, out there. It's there. I mean, there are millions of people around. All you have to do is reach out and say something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But so again, that's, I hate to go back to this, but we need to honestly do a much better job. And it's good that Scott can ride the shit out of his bike. It's good that he can, it's a great ranch. But hey, you know what, man? I see you got track marks on your arm. Hey, man, I see that you're losing a bunch of. We need to call that out with these brothers, because I can tell you one of the things I've never understood is why these clubs let their guys just get strung out on shit. To me, it's counterintuitive, to be honest with you, because if the goal is to build a stronger brotherhood, why in the world would you want to have a brother that's a fucking full-blown addict and going downhill? You know what I'm saying? It makes no sense to me.
Well, like we said, sorry, Mooch, to interrupt, but it's a trickle down from the brother gets hooked on drugs. We either kick him out, or now he can't contribute to the club. He can't attend rides, so that your participation, your attendance is down everywhere. It's just a slippery slope, right? And nobody wants to look back and see the effects of that. But it's so simple. It's like money going into the club, participation to events. All that stuff makes when we're at our fullest is when we're at our strongest, right? So it's like, why would we not want to keep everybody around? No matter what. Like, don't just let something stupid, go by the wayside, and the next thing you know, our charter's down 3 guys, and they're only down to 6, when they were at 9. All that stuff has an effect. It all has an emotional effect on even the guys that are left in the charter.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it comes back to leadership, like we talked about before. We've talked on other episodes about the death or jail adage, Gene. I'm sure you heard it when you first started coming around clubs. Hey, if you join this club, you're going to lose your old lady. You're probably going to go to prison, or you're going to die. You're going to lose everything you own. And to me, what kind of sales pitch was that? Like, how could I look over and say, hey, this guy's my brother, and I want him to join this club, and I want it to ruin his life? That was my mindset. Like, how could I look over and say, this guy's my brother, if I'm going to bring him involved in something, that was going to be death or jail? And I think that's when it comes to leadership, wherein the leadership's responsible to, I wanted people to say when they joined the Mongols, hey, I joined the Mongols, my life got better. Not, man, my whole life crashed or went downhill when I joined the Mongols. And that's the reasons for some of those rules, working out, staying active, checking on each other, no methamphetamines, whatever rules we had in place. There were positive rules to help create a better lifestyle and a better mental health for actual brothers. It was the way that we could actually all get along on the right page, right?
Right. Chase, you hit the nail on the head though earlier. I don't know if you realize it, but I think the biggest issue why a lot of this is not addressed by leadership. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. I'm putting them out. Anyway, the biggest reason is the money. These organizations have become so money-centric that it's almost taken the lead over the brotherhood part of it. And I've seen it. We've all seen it, and that is the true breakdown of an organization, is when the money becomes that fucking important that you'll let a guy get strung out and stay in just to collect dues or whatever. You got a fucking problem.
And that goes into our everyday life, right? The bank wants their money on Friday. That's the best way to put it. The bank wants their money on Friday. There's absolutely nothing you can do. There's no excuses you can give. You can't call the bank and say, hey, I can't pay my bills on Thursday. They don't give a fuck, right? And that's the same way that the clubs have gone into, and it's nothing against the clubs. It's just the fact that as we grow, as we put on these events, it's like we need every dollar we can to throw a party or to put on a dinner or to do something or to go on a run. So the mindset goes from like, hey, let's take care of all of our brothers, to like, hey, we got to get this next event planned. But like you said, like if we just crossed out one event and said, why don't we just focus in on ourselves and the charters that need help, instead of like saying we're going to go to this next run, which we all know, it's just another run. But like we don't really turn inwards and say, how can we help this charter that seems like they're self-imploding, right? You can see it when you see them at runs and stuff like that, or you run into them at funerals, but there's no one reaching out to say, we have to step in. We only step in when it's like they've fucked up and it's time to freaking close them up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And like you said, it's all from that mentality of like we've grown so big that we do need all those funds thrown in the basket to pay for different things to keep it all going. So we kind of get lost and we focus on that. I mean, I'm even subject to that. Like, getting lost in that whole. We've got a bigger agenda to do. If you can't keep up and can't have a job and can't take care of your shit, then and you can't participate, then why are you around? But the ultimate thing is like we forget about the fact that we're all here for one reason, and that was to become brothers with other guys who have like-minded interests in motorcycles.
Right.
So yeah, it's a slippery slope. It's tough. I don't blame any single person. Yeah, leadership revolves, and that people move in and out of positions all the time. And when they're tasked with like running a club or a different charter, there's a whole nother load of shit on their shoulders, right? So not necessarily is there enough time to look back and say, how do we fix these problems that we had in the past? Because we all know it's the bike rolls forward, it doesn't roll back.
Right.
Basically, that's how the clubs work, right? We don't ever look back on anything. All we do is keep looking forward, and whoever falls off the bike they're out.
The scripture, just pretty common is money is the root of all evil. That's actually incorrect saying of it. It's actually just the love of money is the root of all evil, and that, in my opinion, especially the bigger clubs, is the biggest problem. Is they have just fell in love with the fucking money, and you can see that when you really start dialing in and looking at these guys that are have taken over the the number one spots and what have you. A lot of these organizations, you don't see many broke national presidents of these big organizations. It just call it what it is. So it's just a fucking fact.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, Gene, it sounds, just to wrap back up on the positive notes, got a little off track. My next question was going to be, what's next for you? It sounds like you found a home that you're happy in. It sounds like you're still doing jiu-jitsu, work, family stuff, everything going well. What's next for me, Gene?
Brother, it's I hate to say it's a day-by-day thing, but truly, that's just how I started living my life. A long time ago is. I try to do the best, I can today, be the best man, best, father, best brother, that I can today. And, tomorrow, but I try to do, the best, I can tomorrow. But what's for me, I'm just going to keep training, jiu-jitsu, track, not at 56. I'm trying not to get my ass beat as much as I did, but, just living life, brother, just trying to stay healthy, get healthy. I appreciate, you really helped put me on that track, whereas, they became a focus for me, so for that I'm, forever grateful. And, life's good, man. I'm just so blessed right now. The home I have, they're fucking good brothers, and there is no money because we're all fucking, we're a broke ass club, which makes shit, much easier, so we just get together and enjoy each other, and that's what I like. That's honestly, what I wanted more than anything. I don't know if that answered your question or not, Mooch, but...
Absolutely. No, I'm very happy to hear it, man. I'm glad things are going so well for you. Really appreciate having you on the show.
It's been fun.
Mooch and I have been talking back and forth, and we kind of reached out to a few members that are still in motorcycle clubs currently, and their feedback initially was, yes, I'd love to do the podcast. I think it's very important. I mean, every single one of them, almost a standing ovation to the fact that we're even pulling this off to make this work, right? But as time went on and their minds start to take over, a couple of weeks go by and their answers are, I don't think I should do it. I can't be involved. And we totally understand that. I mean, Justin and I, Mooch and I, we appreciate the fact that they even listened to us or thought about it, or they could appreciate the fact that someone's doing this stuff. I think what Mooch and I are asking in this closing statement is we're asking that the leadership of the clubs take a really hard look at this. Think about how this could benefit your membership. Think about how this could be a positive in your club. This is an outreach. It's not to discuss club politics. It's not to discuss club issues. This is just for brothers that need an outlet of somebody to talk to. And we think that the people that we have here, including Gene and other people, can be reached. And there's nothing that we wouldn't do to help these guys before it's too late. So I think what we're asking the club question is, can you just think about this and think about how positive it could be to help people within your clubs, within your charters, from a destructive path. So if you guys could think about it, we'd appreciate it.
I think it's important to point out that these guys aren't alone, and they need to understand what they're going through. They're not alone. There's a lot of us that have gone through the same thing. A lot of us, like we've said numerous times, we have these shared experiences. We all have to deal with the trauma and the stress of club life. So why not do it together? There's no reason that we can't do this together. So regardless of the patch you wear or the politics, you're not alone. You're not out there, and we'll be happy to help.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
And then what about you, Gene? Are you on social media?
I am on Facebook. It's Mean Gene, BJJ, Mean Gene Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And, truly, I don't give a shit what club you're with. If you, just need somebody to talk to confidentially, what have you, I'm always here for anybody. I actually have a number of conversations, with other club members. And, you always have an open ear. I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to tell you what you want to hear, but I'll tell you the truth. And, sometimes we need to be slapped around, sometimes we need to be hugged on, But one thing's for sure, we all have to be there for each other. This, the politics and shit are just killing us, little by little.
Absolutely.
Well, the more people we got lifting, training, and riding, the happier everyone's going to be, right?
Amen, brother. Jason, when I get out to SoCal, I'm going to come see you.
I'll see you in Tennessee, brother.
All right.
Just say,
Let me know.
I'm Jason Logan.
Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Find us on Instagram at automoto.ent, at OG_mooch, at Jason_Logan81, and for more info and episodes, go to automotoentertainment.com. Big thanks to Gene, thanks Mooch, and thank you for tuning in. The Patch Podcast series is brought to you by Oak and Iron, Craft Cocktail Bar in Thousand Oaks, California. By Outdoor Creations, serving the Southern California and Nashville areas.